My name is Nicole Cater, your host, founder, and servant leader of Graceville Community. I want to thank you for tuning in to Graceville Community Podcast. This is a safe space, a place in which we just share stories of how God has touched individuals' lives all across the world and how they are now impacting the kingdom of God. Thank you for tuning in. Blessings to you. Hey there, Grace-Filled podcast listeners. I am so excited, truly deep down excited for our podcast and our session today. First, I want to thank you as always for tuning in to Graceville Community. We are all about carrying each other's burdens and sharing love amongst each other, as well as our number one thing is discipling as we get closer and closer to Jesus Christ. So as you're tuning in today, I have a near and dear friend that I'm excited for the conversation. This is going to be so much fun, y'all. So much fun. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. So she is a loving wife, celebrating 14 years this year. She is a fur mama. But the greatest thing that I love is that she has an amazing heart. You know, listeners, I'm all about servanthood, leadership. I'm all about how you treat people. And I have seen her day in and day out love individuals. She has an amazing heart. Her husband is so much fun. He happens to serve alongside my husband at our church in our live productions. And she is a group leader. So she teaches people, disciple people. I mean, all the things, guys. I could keep going and going and going. But let me pause so we can get into it. Help me welcome Heather Reddick.
Thank you. Such a great intro. I love it. Thank you.
Oh, it is my pleasure. I'm so excited to have this conversation. I mean, kind of like we do over coffee or so forth, but I'm just excited that we have a chance and it's a scheduled opportunity to do this today.
Yes. And to share with other people. Hopefully, I don't mess it up too much.
There's no mess ups because we're just being authentic.
Oh, yes, authentic. So then being messy is good.
Oh, yeah. So I know I gave an intro, but you know, you may want to tell the listeners a little bit more detail or just let's just start. Tell us about yourself. Y'all, let me tell you, we have no agenda. We are just talking life today, okay?
Yes. So, I mean, we could go into it, but I mean, we'd be here forever. This podcast would probably be like 3 books.
Right.
So let's just be easy. I was born and raised in Dearborn, Michigan, and then raised in Canton, Michigan. So about 30 minutes from Detroit. And then I came to Texas to go to school at Arlington Baptist College. I studied Bible and music ministry, and then served at my church for 10 years previous to Gateway. And then I started a business about 10 years ago. So actually this September we'll be setting our anniversary birthday in September for 10 years. So I'm kind of excited and nervous and all the things about that. It's like having a child, I've heard. Like starting a business is like having a child, and realizing that you have to let God take care of it. Even though it's in the secular world, you know, I'm still trying to pursue music ministry at Gateway, but we know how that is. It's a lot. I do serve on at the Gateway Performing Arts, so I still use my music ministry that way and stuff, but I know everybody wants to serve on platform. So but you know, whenever God says, okay, come on in, then I'm ready. So
yes, I love it. Okay, so interesting though. So you went to Arlington Bible College?
Yeah, Baptist College. It's now called Arlington Baptist University. Awesome. So they've extended their programs to other things and stuff like that, but it was mainly ministry focused. So pastors, music ministers, youth ministers would go through that. And then I was probably one of a few women that actually did the ministry part of the music. Most of them did music education, which
Yes.
I did. I actually taught music education at Fort Worth ISD for 3 years, and then
Okay.
taught private music in private schools at Fellowship Academy in Kennedale for a couple of years. So, I mean, I have a teaching, well, had a teaching certificate. I don't have one now.
Yes.
But yeah, I mean, I learned a lot in teaching. Teaching is brutal and good all at the same time. Like it was hard.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie, but it definitely woke you up to a lot more responsibilities, and then it woke you up to culture and how other families work. Like there's
Mhm.
some families that just don't pour into their kids. And then there's families that pour so much into their kids because they want so much. And that was beautiful to see and stuff. So yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I got all kinds of background.
I know. I'm like, I'm loving it. So I'm learning something new right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, I didn't know that you were a teacher.
Yes.
Like, hold on. Like,
Yeah. You
I
wouldn't
love
know
that.
it by my group. I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. I'm just kidding. We're so silly. Okay, sorry.
Oh, well, I am with you. I totally understand. And you brought up a great point. Entrepreneurship is like having a baby. It's this
Yeah.
baby that you birth and then you're developing and you grow, and it has the pains. Like, I feel like it has the birth pains, it has the toddler
Okay.
pains, it has the like adolescent
Okay.
pains, like
Okay.
all of it,
I'm not
right? And
going
it
crazy.
also
Yeah.
carries those rewards, right? There's
Yes.
these like high moments of it.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I just want
Oh,
to
thanks.
acknowledge and celebrate you for 10 years
Okay.
because that is a
Thank
huge
you.
accomplishment.
Thank you.
Being in business for myself for 15 years, I know there are some crying nights.
Yes. Yes.
There was plenty of moments where it's like, I
Yes.
quit, like I'm
Yeah.
firing myself.
We're done. We're
Right.
done. Here's
We're
your
done.
pink slip. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why it, I mean, because I haven't experienced like actual childbirth myself, and we could probably get into that another time. But I have heard that building it up, there is some kind of encouragement that you have to give into the business and stuff. And so through all of this, I want to tie this in biblically, because God has shown me management in not just building a business, but building family, building your marriage, building relationships, building your church, building yourself. I mean, the building relationship with him. There's so much to manage. And I think that I think that's why he gave us the Sabbath, because he knew we would have to manage all of these things. And he's like, okay, take a break.
Yes.
And I'm like,
Yes.
okay, I get that. I get that now. So like pouring into something, investing in something, not just financially, but the hours that you put into it, and then also the thoughts and the strategies and the creative things that you have to manage and put into building that, and then shaping it, and then getting people on board with your vision and trying to say, okay, this is what I want to do. So if you're not excited about it, they're really not going to be excited about
Right.
it too. It's like
Absolutely.
presenting your child, this is my kid.
Right.
I don't want to
Absolutely.
play with him. Poor thing. Or somebody's going to adopt him so that he can play with somebody. Oh my gosh. I don't know.
Oh, no, I love it. That's so true. One of the things that was the greatest, like I've studied Sabbath over time, right?
So
Um,
good.
I grew up in ministry, grew up in the church,
Good.
started ministry at a
Yeah.
very young age, have
So good.
experienced my definitely my own share of like church hurt, seeing
Sure.
all
Sure.
aspects of behind the scenes, right? And
Yeah.
one thing that really stood out to me that was said to me about Sabbath was Sabbath is about the trusting relationship that God can carry it. And I
So
was
good.
like, I had heard and I had
So
tried
good.
Sabbathing for so many years and was like, I'm not getting this right. Like, who
Yeah.
has time to rest?
Yeah.
how do you rest? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like I'm wasting productivity, like all these thoughts I would have, and I would struggle with Sabbath. I
Yeah.
remember hearing that and thinking, that's what it is.
Yeah.
It's literally trusting that God, you gave me 6 days.
Yeah.
And on that seventh day,
Yeah.
not only is this a gift from you that
Yeah.
you're saying, hey, do something you enjoy,
Yeah.
rest, like
Yeah.
take care of your own self, take care of
Yeah.
yourself, all aspects, right? Spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically, like take this and trust me with the rest.
Oh my gosh.
And
Like
so
a
when I
tithe.
people, right? Yes. When I talk to
Yes.
people that are struggling when it comes to Sabbath, it's very interesting you mentioned the tithe because I also find that they struggle with both. Like
Yeah.
it tends to
So
be
good.
that when they struggle with the tithe, they also
Oh,
struggle with the Sabbath.
oh, that's
Because it's
good.
that aspect of like, I
Let's
gotta
have
control
church.
it, and
Oh
I'm
my
not sure if you
gosh.
could take it, right?
Oh, so good. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I know that. Okay, so I love giving. I love
Mhm.
presents. Christmas is my favorite holiday. My birthday, I would love to give people presents on my birthday. And I like receiving them. I'm not gonna lie. I love
Yes.
receiving them, but I would rather give. However, there was a point in my life that I had a hard time receiving. When people gave to me, I felt unworthy. I felt like my identity, like, didn't deserve this and stuff. And a lot of that came from stuff that was taught to me that was untrue,
Mhm.
not by a particular person, but by particular people that didn't heal, that didn't get the moment to heal for themselves and to actually learn God is love.
Mm.
He's so love. I mean, his name is love. That if you don't know God, you don't know love. It's like they're one and the same. And so when you're pushing his judgments and you're pushing the fear of God and all of this other stuff, you're only getting part of who he is. You're
Yes.
missing the main part and stuff of who he is and stuff. And so when you're learning about resting, I don't deserve rest. When you're learning about tithing, I don't deserve the 90%. All of that other stuff just comes in into play, it's almost like it's fighting each other when you're doing all that stuff. So, oh gosh, that is so, so good. I'm gonna write that down.
Yeah.
When you like Sabbath and tithe go together. So
Yes.
true.
Yes.
So true.
Something you said actually brings me to just my own personal like growth that I had to walk through is even how I looked at what it was to be humble, right?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
said, not that one specific person taught me, but just over the years, right? Like
sure.
watching people, I'm like, ooh, they're really prideful. Like, I don't want to be that, right? And
Exactly.
then watching people that I'm like, oh, they're so humble. Like they don't even think that they can go to Cheesecake Factory today, right? Like
Right,
it's a
right.
problem. Like, oh, I had Cheesecake Factory. Oh, there's people with no food. I'm like, oh, should I feel bad that I got to eat out, right?
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
I had a struggle balancing like what true humility was. And I
yeah,
think that I got into a place of what we would call like false humility, right? Of like,
yeah,
okay, almost like trying to portray that there's this level of humbleness or humility because I don't want someone to kind of see me as prideful, right?
right.
So it's again another aspect of trying to control, right? Like I'm trying to
Oh yeah,
control a narrative that somebody else sees. And I
yeah.
think that happens so often. And I'm gonna jump into a topic of church, right?
Okay, come on.
Church and community. Here we go.
Yes.
But I think that happens within church and community. And I'm so excited that the conversation is coming out more and more
Yeah,
of being our authentic self, right?
yeah,
Like not hiding, not having the
yeah,
pretense, but really saying, like, hey, like these are my struggles. No,
yeah,
this is not my struggle, but this is
right.
my struggle. And I
Yeah,
need community in this, and I don't need to hide from it, right?
right,
Because
right,
I think the false humility, which I would say is when someone pretends to be one way, so they pretend
right,
to be humble, but they're
right,
actually acting out of an ego. Because even if you have false humility,
right.
like
Yeah,
at that point in time, I was about like trying to protect my ego still, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it really wasn't
And it turns
humility.
into pride.
And it turns into pride.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you act from places of it, right? So then you start
Right.
to be like, excessively like putting yourself down, deflecting
Right.
praise. Like
Right.
someone says thank you, and then you're like, oh, I just got this from the dollar store. No, just say thank you. Like it was a
Yeah,
compliment, right?
yeah, yeah. I
Yes.
still struggle with that too. And even with my husband. So he'll tell me how beautiful I am. I mean, come on, y'all. Right
You
now.
are.
But yes, I am accepting that. He sees me as beautiful and stuff. So I have to see myself that way too. And I am so thankful that I have a husband that speaks life into me and speaks
Mm,
beauty into me too, because it actually does something to my soul when he says those things. It's the same thing with the Father. When we start reading things about how he thinks of us, how we are, who we are in him. And I think sometimes humility is so that we can keep ourselves from falling. I think it's okay to fall. I think God has already said, I sent my son because I knew
mm,
you were going to fall. And this was in the past. So he's already looking at my future and your future and everybody else's future and saying, okay, I knew you're going to do that. It's okay. You can come back to me because I'm available. You're that prodigal daughter. I'm here with my arms open wide. I'm going to actually run to the gate and come get you. You know,
yes.
that kind of thing. And that is so foreign sometimes to our human viewing physical life mindset. We can't get it out of our head that somebody would actually love us even when we're yucky.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, there are times where like, how you go into a study, you're like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna lie, y'all. So I'm just gonna say it. Sometimes I choose a Bible study because I'm like, this one's gonna be easy, right?
5 days.
Yeah,
5
like,
days.
we'll do this one. This will be easy. Fly through this study, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
then it's
yeah.
like, those are the ones. I have learned to stop saying that because those are the ones where I'm like, oh, we got a lot to
Yes.
work on, huh? Like,
That's a little harsh. Well, it's 5 days. I gotta fit all this in 5 days. Yeah, those tend to
um,
be the hardest ones. Yeah.
yes. And so I remember I had chose this study. I'm like, this is gonna be easy. It's almost like I'm gonna check the list with this one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And in this study, it was a study on identity where I'm like, okay, cool. Yep. When you think you've arrived in a certain area,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
quickly learn, humble yourself. You have not arrived, right? And so it was our identity. And one of the things it said was that, and we go back to this whole aspect again about trusting God, right?
Yeah.
That when we cannot accept a compliment that is relative to our creation. So even if it's like, hey, you're beautiful. Hey, you're kind. Hey,
Mm-hmm.
you are very patient. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we don't accept that compliment because we're thinking
Mm-hmm.
about the times that maybe we're like, I didn't feel beautiful. I've gained 20 pounds. Like,
Yeah.
or, like
Yeah.
I wasn't very patient with my kids. You're seeing me patient right now, right?
Yeah.
But when I'm not accepting that, I'm essentially not accepting God and his creation because
Mm.
I am his creation. And he
Mm.
created those things in me, and those things
Yeah.
are good. And he
Yeah.
called them good. He called them lovely, right? And he
Yeah.
tells me to speak
Oh,
unto those things. And
yeah.
so when I denied it, it was me denying even his goodness.
Oh
And I remember
man.
doing that study of like,
Oh man.
like,
I
oh,
just won in 5 days.
like,
Just won in 5 days. Oh man, yeah, and then it gets you. Ah, dang it. And you think about it too, that he made us in our like that he made us in his likeness. And so if we're saying we're not beautiful, we're saying he's not beautiful.
right.
Ah, Nicole, I only
Yes.
came on here for you to talk. Didn't
Well, look,
want a
I'm like,
therapy session.
you know how I say it all the time. I'm like, every time I have a speaking engagement, I'm gonna teach a class or something. It's like you dive into it, and then I'm like, this was for me. Like now I gotta come up here and teach what I'm working through now because now this was for me.
Oh man, yeah, dang it. Oh, sorry. That's probably a
Oh
bad word.
gosh, that's the goodness. But I think that's the great part of community, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
even like
for
right
sure.
now, in having that conversation, like there are things that you and I are like, oh yeah, we got to work on that, or oh yeah, this,
Yeah,
because we haven't arrived. I say it all the
yeah,
time, from glory to glory to glory until that day that we are in the
yeah,
heavenly place
yeah,
with the Father. And so
yes,
that's the benefit of community, right? Like
yes,
calling those things, speaking truth in love,
yes,
being able to call those things in love and be with that person, right? Be
yep,
present to walk
yep.
with them through
So good.
the valleys and
Yep.
the mountaintop, right?
Yes, yes, yeah. And knowing that sometimes there's conversations that need to be had between that person. And then sometimes there's just sitting. And let's
Mm,
just chat. Let's just get it all out. What's going
yeah.
on with you? I mean, I appreciate you in that because you just, I mean, when you call us out and say, hey, let's come and have some coffee, let's just chat. It's just so relieving. And I love that. I love that about you and that you want to get that, environment with people. And it is such community. There is so much community to that. And I think we've forgotten that. I mean, I don't want to put down technology because we're using technology right now.
Right.
But I think technology has one of two things. It has allowed us to be more open
Mhm.
in our conversation, but it hasn't allowed us to benefit the reciprocal exchange from face to face exchanges and stuff. Because and a lot of that I think has to do with pride too. And my point, like if I'm going to say something to somebody, I really don't want them to say something negative. I really
Mm,
want them to just hear me out and just kind of listen. And not everybody's like that. Some people are like, well, girl, let me tell you what to do. And I'm like,
mhm.
I don't want you to tell me what to do. I really, and
Yes.
I'm not brave enough to say, please don't,
Right.
but at the same time, I sometimes I need to hear it. I sometimes I'm being stubborn and I don't want to hear what the other person is saying. So
Yeah.
I grew up with three sisters and very, very opinionated. I love them so much, but they all have their opinions and we all grew up completely different, all four of us, like totally different lifestyles, but we love each other and we love
Right.
hanging out with each other and they will share their viewpoints of how things should and shouldn't be. And
Mm,
sometimes I'm like, you didn't have to.
right.
You really didn't. I mean, but I love them just the same. I know they mean well. I know they want the best for me. And so that's what I walk away with. And when
Mhm.
we don't have that reciprocating from technology, like Facebook posts and things like that, that's where we're missing that disconnect because we don't know the person. I mean, we've connected with them via internet, but
Right.
we haven't really experienced who they are because I can't see your face and I can't
Mhm.
hear your tone. And
Mm.
I don't know if you honestly mean well, I mean, you come back every week to add a comment here, but are you really invested in my life, full time and stuff? Or are you just, you need something to do because you're bored?
Yeah.
No,
No.
I'm not dissing technology because I use it. I use it
Right.
all the time.
Absolutely. I
So
mean, I tell people, even when it comes to AI, I'm like, I have a love-hate relationship, right? Because I use
yes.
AI, but I'm also like, is it taking away like even the critical thinking aspect, the
Yeah.
ability to go research? Like, I remember as a kid, like when I would say, what does this word mean? My mom would say, go get a dictionary. And I would have to go get the
Mhm.
big Merriam-Webster, like, and figure out what does this word mean, right? And I find myself like
Yes.
as a millennial, now a parent,
Mhm.
telling them go Google. And it's like, I also don't want to turn them to Google because who knows what's going to pop up, right?
Right.
So then it's
Right.
like, but that is their modern day dictionary, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's funny how you mentioned like the ability to view and see each other and
Yeah.
see like, facial expressions. My face will always tell. I do not have the
I'm
type of face that hides what I'm
no, me
thinking,
neither.
right?
Those are I'm
Yeah,
a,
yeah. No, I can be in conversation. It's so funny, especially with my husband, because I can be in conversation or not even say anything yet. And he's looking, he's like, what does that mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? What does that mean? And he's like, your face tells it all. I'm like, oh, I'm really trying to work on that. Like, but I just real quickly was like, you know what? And this is my love hate with AI. So I real quickly typed in, I'm like, what are the statistics on body language? Right. Because I know there's statistics, but I don't
Yeah.
know them offhand. So here's
Yeah.
AI. But
Yeah.
it stated that like and I can't even pronounce this guy's name, Albert Meherbian.
Okay.
Probably said that totally wrong, y'all. So if you're listening, yes, I butchered it. If you know how to say it, then please send us a recording
It's
of it. But
Maherbian. We like
yeah,
Maherbian.
it's Mehrabian. But according to
Maherbian.
Albert, this person's research, it said that 7% of meaning is conveyed through words. Only 7%.
You get out of here.
7% through our words. Then 38% is conveyed through voice. So if we think, if we're on social media, if we're texting all the time, only 7% of our meaning is what's being conveyed.
Wow.
Then if we're doing, let's say we're doing the audio recording, then we get like the 7% plus the 38%. But that still is not even 50, right? We are so low. 55% is communicated through body language.
Wow.
So I
Wow.
mean, as to your very point, like we have pulled away from aspects of community that was originally created. Even when I think about Jesus, right? He gave us so many examples of community. He gathered the disciples. I love this part, which I refer to often. He broke bread, like he shared meals.
Yeah.
He even taught in parables that was
Yeah.
relative to the importance of community, of illustrating like how people work together.
Yep.
He served others. He prayed he prayed together, right?
Yeah.
He gave us the example of what we should be doing in community. And although we have, yes, all this modern day, and y'all hear me out, because what we do here at Graceville Community is, we work with churches, we work with individuals, we do digital marketing. So I'm not like anti this, like, y'all, this is what we do, right? We help churches know how to outreach using digital marketing. We help business owners like outreach using digital marketing. So I often refer to like Paul wrote letters because that's what Paul had in that time. We do social posts, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what we have.
Yeah.
Yet it doesn't remove our requirement to come together as community.
Right. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm just thinking about all of like every single scripture piece that we have. And like this is only 7% of what God's intentions were. Like if we were only there, but then he gives us the Holy Spirit. And so we're still feeling like we're just getting the half of it, like not even a half, a portion of all that he has in store for us.
Right.
So good.
Right.
Hey, let's take a quick break to tell you about Grace-Filled Community.
Graceville Community is an organization that focuses on the primary principles of the Church of Acts, centered around building communities that impact the kingdom of God. We do this through 3 core extensions. 1, Graceville Church Network, where we empower churches and nonprofits for God's success and growth. We offer tailored growth strategies rooted in biblical principles that will help you expand your reach and impact your communities. Just like the early church. We focus not on attendance and numbers, but on discipleship, providing leadership teachings and trainings to today's ministry leaders. Our second extension is Project of the Grace-Filled, where we provide biblical counseling, mentorship, workshops, and events that are dedicated to encouraging individuals to live a life filled with grace and purpose. Rooted in the understanding that all have fallen short and are a working project, let us help the individuals in your community grow as they walk with God and experience the fullness of his love.
Our third extension is the Grace-Filled Business. Grace-Filled Business is here to help small faith-based business owners develop their business in a way that honors God, it brings increase, and allows them to pour back into His kingdom through marketplace ministry and financing His kingdom. We do this through our 15 years of experience of virtual administrative work, digital marketing, business development, and consulting.
Welcome back.
Which is one of the things I think why my heart really is, and you've had time, like, you know me intimately, right? But my heart really is for community.
Yeah.
I've been in space throughout my experiences, right? Which I want to transition in a moment and like let you share some of your experiences where you've seen God in the midst.
Sure.
But I sit and I think about like some of my greatest times where I was depressed, where I wanted to take my life, where I attempted to, where like I was just in this state, and it was loneliness. It was a lack of community around me. And not that there wasn't people, but was there true intimacy? Was I being vulnerable enough to share, like, this is what I'm going through? Or at the time, was I in a church where I had to be in this pretense to make it seem like everything's okay? Or could I be vulnerable and be received well in just that I'm struggling and I'm not okay?
So good.
And that's why it's so important to have community and have those people around you that can sit, be present. No, we don't have to have the answers to it all, right?
Right.
But even just the ability to be present.
Yeah. Or just sitting and looking up the answers together.
Yes.
Like finding the answers together. Like, do you want to research with me? I love studying the Bible. It's one of my favorite things ever. And I actually came across the word fear. And there's 2 words for fear in the Greek language. And so like when you're using the word, when you're reading the words in scripture and stuff like that, you have to understand that there's double meaning sometimes to the word that we transliterated into this word that they gave to us and stuff. So, so to give a little background, I too had an experience where I tried to take my life. And believe it or not, I was at school. I was at college, Bible college of all places. And to not feel that intimacy, they didn't know what to do. And that's not a shame on them. It's why haven't, it's really not even a shame at all. It's basically they just weren't taught either. And so it's a continual thing. And I knew I had to find something different. I knew that something different was out there. And so I asked the hard questions, and I asked, why are we doing this? What is the purpose for this? And I tend to do that a lot. I do that to my husband, and I know I get on his nerves. But what is the intent behind why we do what we do? And I think that's where God is. It's not that He wants our obedience. It's that He wants our heart in the obedience. It's the intention behind everything. Like, what is the purpose of you saying yes? I mean, yeah, I get it. I have all these benefits for you. I do want, but I do want this. I want relationship. I want to dive into that. And so when I was going through that period at my school, it really was a point where I just couldn't find that in people. I didn't find that close community, that somebody sit with me for a long period of time. Are you there with me this, like, through this whole thing? I had a hard time with people were afraid to come and talk to me afterwards, to ask if, even to ask, are you okay? It was few and far between. And I know that they wanted to, but they just didn't know how. And so I think that's where we're lacking in churches, period. Not just our church, not just in the church that I was previously at. It's just period. We don't know how to sit and be. the human being of us. We are so quick to do. We're human doings. We're not, it's kind of reverse. We're human doings and
Yes.
not human beings. And we forget how to be. I actually had a friend, she said, Heather, something that they would do is if they wanted you to come over for dinner, it wasn't just 2 hours and then you're gone kind of thing. It was, let's sit and chat first, and then we'll have dinner, and then let's sit and chat some more. And the pace of everything was so slow. So what we would be like snail's pace, I can't do this.
Right.
It's too slow. And she would be great to talk to. I should get her to come on here.
Yes,
But
please.
yeah, she's amazing. And but she just said the pace of everything was just chill. Like you didn't have to pretend. There was no dress up. You didn't have to make yourself all something. You just could come as you are, how you were in that moment at that time, and just be. And I'm like, that is so foreign here. We don't know what that
Oh.
looks like. And every single time we do that, we get to the place of rest where we think we can rest. We feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
We literally, I just yesterday, Sam and I took a day off. He actually wound up working because he felt guilty. But the whole thing was, it was just supposed to be a day off. And he felt so guilty for doing that because we're so used to going and going and going. And I just did a full circle with Sabbath
Yes.
and tied that all back in there. But just to be, I think that's where we're scared because we don't know what we're supposed to be doing in that resting moment, in that point. And I think that's where I realized at that point in my life that people just didn't know what to do.
Right.
They don't know what to do. They can give examples and suggestions and even Bible verses to help you through things, but they just didn't know. They don't know, and they're afraid to tell you because they don't want to tell you wrong, or they don't want to feel like they're arrogant, or they want to be humble and all these other things. So I get it, people. We're all there. We're all still learning. And I think we're always going to keep learning.
Yeah. No, definitely. You bring up such a good point. When I had my experience, very similar, I was not at Bible college, but I was very active in a church, right? When I say very active, like Isaiah and I were on the pastoral team in that church.
Wow.
And, it was one of my most depressing times. And I remember, like, to the point of what you said, the individuals around us was not trained. They were not taught. They didn't know what to do. And so because I didn't come with the like expectation of the normal Nicole, happy, jolly, like I got all the positivity, like I'm your backup girl, right? That was not there. I couldn't seem to pull it out of me, right? And so they didn't know what to do. So then it became an avoidance, right? Which our marriage group right now is in the series where we just started How We Love. I love this study.
Okay.
It is like my third time around with it. I absolutely love How We Love. But one of the things the main thing that it dives into is like the attachment theory of how we were created to be attached to our parents, right? Like that's how God created. For a certain period of time, you're attached to your parents. And with that attachment theory, like you learn in an early on age, like, am I safe here? Am I protected here? Am I, is this a good place, or do I need to fend for myself? Right. And so in fending for ourselves, it looks like, okay, I need to avoid circumstances, or I need to be a people pleaser because I need to make sure that everything is good so that I don't, cause a negative circumstance here. So we learn these like
Control
love styles that if we don't heal from, will carry through like relationships. And I think about that time, which is probably again why I can have so much grace and empathy towards people today, right? Because I think about that time, and in that time, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I had empathy or grace. I actually became angry. I
Yeah.
became angry that like
Yeah.
I'm surrounded by people that I feel like I've done stuff for day
Right.
in and day out. I
Right.
feel like I've like sacrificed to the highest level. And now
Yeah.
when I'm in my deepest state where I need community, like no one's present.
Yeah. Where
And
were
so
you?
not
Yeah.
understanding at that time, I was angry.
Yeah.
Like I was angry at them and then I became angry at God too, right? Um, and now in a place of understanding, there's this recognition that people, if we don't heal, if we're not taught, we run to those things that we did at early age. Like
Right.
we either avoid. So then people are just avoiding me, right?
Right.
Or you know, if I'm not avoiding, then now I'm people pleasing. So now it's like, well, if she asks for anything, we're just gonna give it to her, but we're just gonna leave her alone until she asks for something, right?
Yeah.
Well, in that state, I didn't know what to ask for, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I tell people like I remember even when we lost our child, and
Mm,
I literally to this day can picture, I remember the exact setup of the service.
mm,
I literally can picture and tell you every person that was there.
mm.
On the opposite side, I can tell you every person that wasn't there.
Ugh.
I can tell you every person that called and the people that didn't,
Mm.
especially after the fact. Like, again, my own self, or
Yeah.
Isaiah and I not being taught, like, I carried this anger
Mhm.
towards people that really were sitting in a state of like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, I don't have words to say. I don't know what to do with your level of pain. You know, like they just didn't know what to do. But in
Yeah.
my eyes, all I seen was you're not present.
Yeah.
I'm cutting you off, right? So I like
Yeah.
those relationships that really was more, they were hurting for me, but just didn't know how to communicate. And I didn't know how to communicate like that I'm upset because I need you and I don't know how to tell you to be here.
Right.
And so, again, all of that to your point of it's so important for us to teach these things, to
Right.
teach these principles,
Right.
especially when we're in spaces where we hold community, right? And
Mhm.
so, as I think of churches, which is one of the main reasons why it's Graceful Community, like we go into churches and I do a lot of teaching and leadership development because
Yeah.
even with like our leaders in churches, like there has to be a safe space for them too
Right.
because they're
Yes.
human
They're
beings.
humans. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. They got to do that too. Yeah. It doesn't stop just because they have that position. It just means that they have more to carry. So,
Mm,
yeah.
yes.
I have
I
a question
yeah.
and this
I'm like,
might be
wait,
telling.
wait, I don't think I've
Okay.
ever had people on a podcast ask me a
I'm
question.
gonna
Hold on.
ask you a question.
I love this.
Okay. So how do you allow, and this is a parenting question because I'm not a parent,
Mhm.
but how do you allow your children in conversations when you're talking to adults? What is your approach?
Yes, yes. So, first thing I would say is that we have identified, like, in our home, we have safe space. Literally,
Okay.
it's called. Well, we changed it. It used to be called safe space, and now we call it heart to heart. As they got
Oh,
older, we took
nice.
it from safe space because now you know that we're safe, and now we just
Okay,
want to have heart to hearts, right?
nice.
So we call it heart to heart now, but we established that to where that you knew that we're always going to be honest with you. You asked a question. We believe if you're asking the question, you're ready for the answer, right?
Got it. Got it.
And so we had always been vocal, always gave them safe space, always even told them that, hey, whatever comes in this safe space, one, you can trust that it's staying with us. I'm
Gotcha.
not calling my friend like, girl, you know what this kid did? No, it's staying with us.
Right.
And there is no punishment within safe space. So
Got it.
safe space. Now, we are not removing consequences, and there's a big difference between what consequences and punishment is, and that's a whole nother thing, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
there is no punishment. Um, but there may be consequences. Like if you come in safe space and says, hey, like this is what happened and I'm struggling that, well, some of the consequences are we may have to change some boundaries to help you. until you get to a place that you don't need,
Yeah.
or I won't even say you don't need these boundaries, but you understand how to create them yourself, right?
Yeah.
And I say all that to get to your answer of,
It's okay.
after doing that, what our communication was, hey, until we state that this individual is to be a safe space in which you can be openly communicative with when we're in the presence of like adult conversation,
Got it.
we're going to ask you to withhold from responses.
Let us
And
go
you can
first.
have questions.
Yeah.
Now we're asking you to withhold, not that we're never going to address them. We're asking you to withhold. And when we come together in just our family, all questions, all statements, all comments, like if you got jokes about it, if you want to laugh about it, like we can do that in our safe space.
Okay.
And so and one of the things that we taught them about that, and as we still do it to this day, like there are times we come together, we're like, okay, yes, that would have been an appropriate question. Or, hey, no, that would not have been appropriate. And so part of it is, teaching them. And the reason why we do this is to teach them, like, how do you have appropriate communications?
Yeah.
Because at some point, I mean, I think of myself like I almost said 30. I'm 40, not 30.
Girl, rewind the time.
As a 40-year-old woman, I may be in the presence of conversation with women that are 70, right?
Right.
And it almost is the same concept of like, there is a certain level of honor and respect that I'm going to give them because of the wisdom and age that they have earned, right? So I need to understand when it's appropriate, my responses or my questions versus when they may not be appropriate. And that's essentially what we're teaching them over time, is we're asking you to bring it to us so that we can navigate with you, like what is appropriate. I mean, my husband, he will openly tell you he can be very sarcastic. So we have a child that can be very sarcastic and it can come off really funny and it could be like, ha ha ha. Yeah, in certain settings, like this is not okay, right? So we had to do that to like, okay, in that moment, what were you thinking? In that moment, what would you have said? And then walk them through like, oh, I'm so glad you didn't say that. This is what that could have come out. Or like, hey, that would have been a great thing to say. And then I think the other part about that too is like, it's also teaching them how to do relationships peer to peer.
Yeah, very true.
So it's not just, they need to see how we do relationships, how we manage communications, how, they've been in spaces where they're like, we know you guys did not agree with what that person said. Okay, well, how did you see us handle it? Because it's teaching you how to handle your relationships peer to peer and relationships that you may have people that, biblically have earned the honor and respect for you to give them a certain type of communication as well.
Yeah. I asked that question because in a lot of what I grew up in was, children conversations do not happen with adults. And so when you were a child, you went away to your room and played, or down in the basement, because we're in Michigan.
Yes.
And we played in the basement with kids that were like-minded, that were the same. However, in my husband's growing up stage, he was welcome into adult conversation, and they were allowed to talk about those things while children were present. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there were godly conversations being had.
Yeah.
They knew that these conversations, if we're going to talk about politics, we need to be godly about those politics. If we need to talk about, certain things, we need to curb our, what we're saying, because there are children present. They didn't exclude the children. There was an inclusion in it. And so that is so foreign to me. So like, there are things that I will not say to an adult, but I'll say it to my peer. I'll say it to people that are younger than I am or something like that. But then in a business setting, when you are the authority figure, that shifts, because you can be older or younger than the people that you're working with or that are underneath you. And so you have to take that now responsibility on your shoulders to manage, to dictate, to delegate to those older people, and be able to convey to them, okay, I know that this is what you want to do, but in the vision and the structure of our business, this is what has to be done.
Right.
I appreciate your insight and all the other stuff that has come with training. It's another type of management of communication and stuff like that too.
Mhm.
Being respectful to the other person, but at the same time, knowing that you have to you're the one in charge to manage what that is, because it's going to affect you more
Yeah.
so than it's going to affect everybody else. So, I
Absolutely.
mean, I feel like I didn't get that. Like my mom and dad were pretty good with, be careful with what you're going to say to people and
Mhm.
don't talk like that. And you call them yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am.
Yeah.
And yes, sir, no, sir. Those respectful things. But I think they forgot to teach us, when you're in this situation and you're the younger person and they're
Mhm.
doing wrong, you
Mhm.
have
Oh
the
yeah.
right to call them out on it, because
Mhm.
this is what scripture is about. We're supposed to be strengthening and encouraging each other in this way. And so that I lack that sometimes. So when I come out to some people and I'm harsh, forgive me because I'm still learning how to train, or I just be quiet. If I'm sitting there, it's because I'm just trying to be safe. Oh my goodness.
Oh my gosh. Well, I think one of the things too is it runs through all communication, right?
Right.
There are key principles that should just happen because we're being to being, right? One,
Sure.
we need to recognize that we are all God's creation. Scripture doesn't say like, oh, Nicole and Heather was created in God's image, but Jennifer was not, right?
Right.
It says we were all created in his image. So we're all image bearers.
Yeah.
Now, how we're displaying through our actions, if the fruit of the spirit is coming out, now that's, a different story. That's what needs to be
Sure.
observed. But as
Sure.
far as how we treat others, like we
Sure.
are image bearers. So
Yeah.
one of the things that I've always, taught our children is that you are speaking to someone that's an image bearer of God.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
need to be mindful in whatever communication you give, right?
Yeah.
That that is who you're speaking to, right?
Yeah.
And the scripture says that we will be held accountable for every word.
Yeah.
It doesn't say just the word when we're on a platform, just the word when we're
Yeah.
on a podcast. Like, no, you're going to be
Every
accountable for
single one.
every word. The word I gave to my husband, the word I gave to my kid, the word I gave to the cashier,
Yeah.
every word.
Yeah.
And in that, there's a teaching component of how do I communicate? How do
Mm.
I use my words? How do I even have boundaries with my communication? How do I
Yeah.
create boundaries for the way you can communicate to me, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I do think that, like you said, how Sam's family allowed him to be there for communications. I think that's one of the reasons why we don't mind their presence, but we don't allow response, right? Because you're
Got you.
still developing, you're still
Got you.
understanding, is this a space to give and what is an appropriate response? But I
Sure.
do want you present, like you said, to Sam's family, because I know that whatever conversations I'm a part of,
Yeah.
they should be centered around God.
Yeah.
So whatever we're talking about, like you said, it could be politics, it could be sports, it could be, whatever it is that we're talking about, that my words should be words that are directed by, and my foundation should be in living a God.
Yeah.
So it's almost like when you're present, they're always teaching moments.
Yeah.
They're always teaching moments. I remember when one of our children was kind of going through um, going from, like, I guess what are they, preteen to the teen state, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say we probably had, thank the Lord, because I hear stories and I'm like, oh, thank you, Lord, that I don't go through these things, right? But I'd say we had about 2, 3 months where I was like, am I gonna make it? Like, I'm totally failing. Like,
Oh
we're
my
failing.
gosh.
Am I gonna make it? This is
Oh my
horrible. Like,
goodness.
and I remember, I'm a big believer. I'm definitely like therapy and theology work hand in hand. I believe
Yeah.
in counseling. I believe
Yeah.
in doing it on a regular, not just when there's crisis, but that there's
Yeah.
value in making sure that you have someone that you can talk things through.
Yeah.
And so we did our family counseling, and I remember the counselor was like, okay, well, I think he just, needs to be present with you guys, and he needs to just be with his father more. Not that he wasn't present, not that he wasn't with him, but the key part that he said is he needs to observe how his father responds to
Mm.
circumstances.
Mm.
And I was like, that's the answer? Like, what? Right?
That was
So
it.
when I think about it, like, and we made that shift, it became, and there was a realization that, like, okay, when they're very young, they need mom, right? Like, they need me to
Right.
feed them. I'm the nurturer,
Right.
I'm the like consoler, so forth. Like,
Right.
it's becoming a shift where they now need the structure that comes with
Yeah.
dad. They now
Yeah.
need some of the teachings, right? Like,
Right.
some of, if I look at Proverbs, like, it starts off with like, son, listen to my words, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so that's what the shift was needed. And they get that by observation.
It's so
We
cool.
we know that, like, we can say all the words, but they're gonna do what they see. And
Mm.
so even in that, that's why it's important to allow them to be a part of that conversation. And when I say be a part, to be in a presence where they can hear, because
Yeah.
they too are observing. They're
Yeah.
observing, can you speak in kindness? Can you speak in gentleness? Can you carry out the fruits of the spirit
Right.
when the conversation is challenging and you don't agree?
Right.
There's this aspect of repair that needs to happen in relationships, and they need to see that like, if you do fall out of the fruits of the spirit, and if you do say something that wasn't kind or gentle, do you have the ability to repair? Can you go back and apologize? Can you
Yeah.
repair that relationship? Same for like parent to kid. I grew up in a home where, like, it wasn't a home where the parents apologized to
Right.
the children, right?
Right. Right.
And I'm very big on that, because that teaches the apology relationship. Like, listen, I know I'm not perfect. Y'all, I think I'm a pretty good mama, but I'm not perfect, right? And so
Right.
I'm
Right.
gonna mess up. I'm going to
Yeah.
even, like, as much as I want to keep my word, like, I may
Yeah.
have told you, yeah, we could get ice cream Friday, and I forgot about it Friday. And then next week you're like, well, you told me ice cream, you didn't keep my word. Oh my gosh, I didn't. I'm sorry. There
Yeah.
is something that comes with an apology, and teaching them that relationships should carry
Yeah.
apology to apology.
Yeah.
That's a healthy relationship.
And I think sometimes the parents refrain from apologizing because of that neutral ground, because it gives ammunition I mean, no, I know for mine, it would have been nice for my parents to just say, I'm sorry, sometimes and stuff like that, just so that they can meet me halfway. Like, knowing, okay, I get it. You're my parent, but you mess up. You don't make good choices all the time, and
Yes.
I think that's true for all authority, which is servant leadership. If
Mhm.
you realize, your servitude comes first before your leadership, and as you're serving others and stuff like that, it keeps you on that plane that, yes, you have authority. God has given you authority and a place to put all of that authority, but he wants you to remember where you came from, like, as far as serving others and how you got there. You're ultimately serving others,
Right.
which is that whole servant leadership. And I think remembering that you're going to mess it up, that people mess up, make mistakes. And if we're not in that position right now at our church, that people make mistakes. They
Yes.
do, and it's not going to ever be perfect. I
Mhm.
want to find that perfect person. I just want God's man. And it's going to be, Paul wasn't perfect. Peter wasn't perfect.
Right.
It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. However, you have to be willing to say you're sorry. You
Yes.
have to be willing to say, I messed up. I
Mhm.
screwed up. I am so sorry. So
Yeah. I
that
think
could
it's a
go on
tell
forever.
of the heart condition, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, if I and oh gosh, I'm like, time has flown by, but
Already?
I
Oh
know,
my
I'm like, oh
goodness.
my gosh. But if I bring it all together, like, in each area that we talk about, like, when I think about trust in God, when I think about relationships, when I think about the tithe and the Sabbath, and
Yeah.
all of these components, right? It
Yeah.
all leads to the heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It all leads to improving our heart condition, and
Yep.
it being centered out of our love for God.
So good.
Because when the going gets tough, which it does,
Mm-hmm.
scripture has told us that when we follow Christ, there's suffering, right?
Yep.
So when the going gets tough, it is out of our love for him that we carry through the things that we should do. Like, it is in my love for him. I don't always maybe feel like having a gentle conversation with somebody that's not being so gentle to me, right? Or I don't always feel like apologizing, especially when you can't give me an apology back. Or
Right.
I don't always feel like sacrificing maybe and showing up for you. And maybe I feel like, well, you didn't show up for me. But it's not even out of my basis of you. It's out of the heart of my love for God and recognizing that he does it for me day in and day out.
Yep. So good.
And so scripture says, what more can I do but to be a living sacrifice?
Yeah.
And so I think that that's just I think that's the sum of it all. Kind of like, I think it's Paul that said, like, the sum of it all is to like love God and follow his commandments, right?
Yeah.
So
good.
yes.
So good.
Yes.
How much longer can we go?
I know. I'm like, we totally have to do this again.
I need 20 more minutes.
Oh my goodness. I know we do it
good.
one-on-one at times, but we have totally got to do this again. I would love to have you come back on any other time. I know that you will probably not say anything, but I want to lead into it, guys, because that's just how great Heather is. She has not told you what her business is. And I think it's important for you to know what her business is, because she does something that is phenomenal, and her heart and her servanthood attitude. Trust me, you want to know what she does and how she does it, because she does it from a servant heart. And I'll say this part: if I was having a wedding, which I'm planning to do, our wedding celebration, Heather is the go-to because of her heart.
Thank you.
Because of her heart, going above and beyond. So I'm going to let you, because you know way more about all that you do. I know the component, but yes, please take a moment and just tell us about what it is that you do.
Sure. So I am a wedding planner. I started 2015. I have actually been planning events my whole life. My mother planned events. She was a project manager for the state of Michigan, and everything that we ever did was an event. And so I am very qualified, but I love it. I love putting together peace in chaos. And so my mission is to always make things easier for the bride. I've done other things, like not just brides, I've done anniversaries and birthday parties and stuff too, but it's just to make things easier. And so I'll do the contacts for you. I'll do the phone calls. I'll find the places. You can come along with me if you're that type of person. And if you're just that type of person that says, hey, you take it, I don't want it, I can do that too. So I'm all in. I'm wherever you need to do. So I research anything that you need wedding related, and I help you plan that out. I'm very big on budgeting, staying to the structure piece, because that's typically our roadmap for the most part. And then I go on to design and talk about how you like getting into the details. Do you want this to be black or white? Do you want this to have, the floral, or would you rather just, straight lines and contemporary looks and things like that? So yeah, I love planning. I don't do all of the design. I usually have somebody coming in and doing the design for me, but I know who to look for. I know where to go and who to send you to. So, but yeah, I'm a wedding planner. That's what I do. And it's called Life Events. Our website is lifeeventsdfw.com. And right now we are actually getting ready to have a wedding workshop at the end of February on the 23rd. It's the beginning stages of planning. So I know a lot of you will be getting engaged February 14th, Valentine's. Yes. And so this is a great time for you to do that. And then March 1st, we're having a styled shoot. It's called a live style shoot. And basically you'll get to come and see it behind the scenes. So we do style shoots for our publications and things like that. So if we're posting stuff on wedding or on our weddings and things like that, this kind of helps. And it definitely helps people who don't have those pictures yet to get those things out there. It just shows you what we can do. And so it's kind of like a behind the scenes, and you get to view this venue and meet vendors and eat.
Oh,
So that's
like you
even
got
better.
me. I'm in. Like I don't even.
No, it's like a free cake tasting. Like if you wanted to meet a baker, and the baker comes out and she brings her food and stuff, so you can taste what she makes, and then it's just like, oh, I'll just hire you. Okay, that's fine.
Yes.
So it's just done making things easier. I'm all
I
about
love it.
efficiency. So yes, ma'am.
Yes.
And that's
Well,
at
thank you.
lifeeventsdfw.com. Sorry, I don't think I said that. Did I say that?
Yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. We will, as always, listeners, I'm going to have it. It's going to be there in the show notes. We're going to plug in ways that you can stay connected with Heather. I am so grateful to you, friend, for coming
Thank you so
on.
much for having me.
Such a nice early morning. I know it's like cold outside and raining. I'm like, it is a day that you kind of just want to cuddle up, but you
Yes.
came on. So
I did.
thank you.
Thank you
so
for
much.
having me. This was so fun. So good. We could go on forever.
I know we
love
could.
this.
I know we could. I'm like, we could record like episode 2 through 5 through 6. I know. We will do more.
Okay.
Well, Graceville listeners, as always, I want to thank you for taking time to tune in to Graceville Community Podcast. Our overall goal is that you have been inspired through the gospel and the stories of individuals that have walked with Christ and have seen him be God. And so I hope that this message and this time today with our podcast has inspired you. As always, if you do not have community and you are looking for community, I want to encourage you to join our Facebook group, Graceville Community. Connect with us. We also would like to get you connected to someone local, whether it's a church, whether it's a ministry, whether it's a mission. We want to get you connected to someone local. So first and foremost, connect with us at Graceville Community through our Facebook group. We provide weekly encouraging, inspiring content for you, answer questions, and give you community. Love ya.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Graceville Community Podcast. We would like to invite you to visit gracevillecommunity.com. Graceville Community is all about doing church the way Church of Acts did, using 5 main principles that we see in the book of Acts. Sharing resources as believers pooled their possessions and resources to support those in need, as we see in Acts 2:44. Through hospitality, the early Christians practiced hospitality by opening their homes to others, as we see in Acts 2:46. By financial aid, the church in Antioch sent financial aid to believers in Judea during a time of famine, as described in Acts 11:29. Prayer and encouragement, they supported each other through prayer and encouragement, as we see in Acts 4:24. And finally, spiritual guidance. The apostles and elders provided spiritual guidance and teaching to help strengthen and build the community, as we see in Acts 15:30. I would like to encourage you, if any of those areas are areas in which you are in need or can contribute, please reach out to Graceville Community. We are working together across the world with ministries and individuals alike to help bring back the Church of Acts.